What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Adventure Outpost, your hub for all things movie related. Another weekend is coming on. It is once again time to talk those juicy box office numbers. As always, we're going to dive into all that good stuff, but quickly, as always, if you can, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, drop some comments down below. It's how we help this channel grow. We had another stellar weekend here at the box office. We got so much to dive into, so we're not going to waste any time. We're going to start, as always, like we do, with the 2023 box office chart. Let's take a look. And as you can see right here for week 27, we were $134 million in the top 10. We were up 10.9% over this last week, buoyant by a huge performance by Mission Impossible and as some other stellar movies that have had some great holdovers, and one particular movie that is absolutely sweeping the box office. We're going to dive into all that good stuff right now. As always, we're going to dive into that top 10. All eyes were looking to see what Mission Impossible was going to do. And while it did come in just under some of the forecasts of what they were doing, I think this is still a really solid open for Mission Impossible. It's the highest, second highest grossing opening 5-day weekend for Mission Impossible, behind only Mission Impossible 2. So this is still a stellar, a lot of stuff to be proud of. Even though I know we're getting so many reports of it underperforming, I think this movie, much like all of Tom's movies, are going to have some fantastic legs, and this movie is going to continue to do business for the rest of July and August. Yes, even with all of the crazy amount of fight that's going to have to put up in the next week or so with the huge movies coming out next week, Tom movies just do well in theaters. They're going to do well over time. Worldwide, this movie is doing phenomenally well. This movie is going to make a large amount of money. So I don't think we should really just put the freaking feather in the cap right there to say this is another movie completely underperforming in the summer. And it's yeah, but the opening weekend is not indicative of the entirety of its box office performance, and to label it a disappointment simply because of one opening weekend, to come in just slightly under the numbers that you said, I feel is a little disingenuous. So I feel like only time will tell what Mission Impossible's final tally is going to be, and that will be when we write this story. Just like Gabriel in the movie says, his story is not yet written. So no, that was a deep cut for you. For any of you people that saw Mission Impossible, I saw Mission Impossible. I fucking love it. Mission Impossible, one of my favorite franchises. Tom Cruise is the man. Of course, naturally, I was going to love this movie, and I absolutely did. It was fantastic. So let's dive into the top 10, and we'll see where everything fell in this past weekend. Now, of course, the number one movie of the weekend was Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, an absolutely mouthful of a title. It took in $56.2 million for its 3-day weekend, for a total 5-day weekend of $78 million off a $290 million budget. And that budget right there is what's making everybody consider this movie to be such an underperformer and a long line of underperformance for this summer. And yes, that $290 million budget is ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. And I don't know if we can really, normally I want to say, why are these movies costing so much money? And of course, naturally what helped bloat all these budgets that we're seeing from this year is all these movies. We're getting a lot of the movies that were shut down during COVID, had the COVID delays, had all these COVID protocols that they had to put in just to be able to start filming again, which really racked up a lot of money on top of the money that they already spent. So it looks like for some of these movies, we're getting these insanely bloated budgets, which is making it a little bit harder for these movies to make its money back as we're going along. Now, I think $78 million is still a fantastic opening weekend. This is it. I don't think we should worry too much with this $200 million price tag. I think this is going to absolutely make its money back, at least break even in the long run, because worldwide, this franchise is a moneymaker. Tom Cruise is a moneymaker. This movie is going to have legs, and it's going to do business. It's going to fucking absolutely do business. It helps that it's got the A cinema score. People are going to come out and see it. People love these types of movies. These action franchise movies right now are really in. Action is in this year. So I think this movie's going to have a healthy longevity here, and we're going to see these movies hold very strong, and we're going to see this movie continue to make money week over week. So I think this is an absolutely fantastic start, I think, for this franchise. Obviously not at the absolute highs that they were hoping for. Obviously, with a franchise, you're always hoping to be the biggest and the best when it comes out. You want to do the biggest performer. You want to be the best performer for the weekend. Not always going to happen, but it's got pretty damn fucking close. It was only behind, I think, Mission Impossible 2 by a few $1 million, under $10 million. I think it was single-digit $1 million that it was behind the opening of that one for its 5-day weekend. So still, it's still, this is a good opening weekend right here. We should not be heralding this as another in a long line of underperforming box office bombs from this summer. That's just absolutely not the case with this movie. In second place is a movie that's doing absolute gangbusters right now at the theater. It is Sound of Freedom, and its third week is up 37.2%. This movie continues to expand in theater over theater, just continues to expand in bigger and bigger notions in all of these theaters. It has made $27 million this past weekend to bring its total domestic hold to $85 million of a $14 million budget. Don't discount that faith-based audience, man. They will turn out for a movie that they want to turn out for, and they are turning out in droves for Sound of Freedom. Now, it would be interesting to see, I can't really find it anywhere that says what the percentage-wise is of the Pay It Forward program that the movie is putting forth, where you can pay for other people to go see the movie, so that the studios and like churches and everything are buying these Pay It Forwards and then passing along tickets to people. I'm just curious of how much of the percentage of this total is coming from that and how much is actual walk-in business. I don't have the movie in my theater, so I can't tell offhand how many people are, just coming in off the streets buying tickets as opposed to these people with the Pay It Forward program. So it's an interesting thing. I can't really find any metrics for it, but I can't imagine it's a lot. Like, I'm sure it's like a small portion of this, because it seems like the people are coming to see it. When I went to go see it, I saw it on like a random weekday. It was like a 1 p.m. show, and it was sold out. So clearly there's an audience here for it. People are showing up for this movie. So it's doing absolute gangbusters. I'm sure it's going to continue to do gangbusters, because usually when you get a movie like this, especially in theaters where it had like a very small rollout, where not a lot of theaters got it, but it's really blowing up like this. I think we saw it with Everything Everywhere All at Once last year. These movies tend to get these huge expansions. So they just open up in more and more theaters week over week to get as much as it can in while it still can. 14 million, 85, almost, this movie is probably going to make $100 million. Like, who would have saw this one coming domestically? $100 million off a movie that only cost $14 million to make. That is huge for them. I'm not even going to talk about any of the other politicized nonsense that you want to put or attach to any of this. I'm not here for that discourse. I'm here just to talk numbers, and strictly from a numbers sense right here. This movie is doing well. That is an absolutely fantastic return on investment right there. $85 million so far off a $14 million budget. Got to give the credit where the credit is due. Good for you, Sound of Freedom. In third place, we got Insidious, The Red Door, and its second week dropped 60.6%. Is the norm usually for your horror movies right there. It still managed to take in $13 million, bringing its total domestic hold to $58 million of a $16 million budget. This is another big win for horror. Gets in, gets out, does its business, has a fantastic opening weekend to help pay for the movie and make its money back, and then now it's just print and profit until it dips out of theaters. In fourth place, we've got Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. In its third week, drops 56.2%, takes in $12 million, bringing its total domestic hold to $145 million of a $300 million budget. Just at such a long fucking climb this movie still has to make any type of money. It's just absolute. I'll still never understand in my entire life why we would have given Indiana Jones a $300 million budget. It just makes zero sense to me. Probably the biggest story out of the week is Elemental right here in the fifth spot. In its fifth week, drops only 9.3%. This movie has had fantastic legs right now. And if it did not cost $200 million, this movie would be an absolute success story. 9.3%. That's fantastic. It made $9 million, bringing its total domestic hold to $125 million of a $200 million budget. If this movie cost $75 to $100 million, we'd be having a completely different discussion about this movie right now. So it is absolutely insane that this is cost $200 million to make, but is having fantastic legs. It is continuing to do fantastic business week over week, and with such a huge slate of movies that have been coming out, still managed to stay in the top 5 for 5 weeks now is impressive in and of itself. Spending its first week outside of the top 5 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. In its 7th week, drops 24.7%. Another fantastic hold right there. Animation, fantastic holds this weekend. It takes in $6 million, bringing its total domestic hold to $368 million of a $100 million budget. Just absolute success story right there. One of the few pure success stories of the summer. In 7th place, we've got Transformers Rise of the Beast. In its 6th week, drops 33%, takes in $3.4 million, bringing its total domestic hold to $152 million of a $200 million budget. In 8th place, we've got No Hard Feelings. In its 4th week, drops 38.9%, takes in $3.3 million to bring its total domestic haul to $46 million off of a $45 million budget. Couple that with its worldwide gross, and this movie made itself a nice little piece of change right there. Not bad for an R-rated comedy. The same cannot be said, however, for Joyride in 9th place. In its 2nd week, drops 55.7%, takes in only $2.5 to bring its total domestic haul to $10 million off of a $25 million budget. So this movie's struggling to find an audience, struggling to make its money back right there. And rounding Rounding out the top 10, we have The Little Mermaid spending what is probably its last week in the top 10 here. In its 8th week, drops 36.3%, takes in $2.3 million, bringing its total domestic haul to $293 million off of a $250 million budget. Now, as always, we like to take a look at our fallen heroes. These are our heroes that did their time in the top 10, but have now bowed out for greener passages. We take a look here at the chart. We have only one movie this past week bowing out of the top 10, and it was Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. After 2 weeks on the chart, bows out, struggled to find an audience there, and pretty much came and went like the wind. You did your time, you had your say, you had your fill, but now it's time to say adieu to you. We will see you in the realm of physical media, and as always, we salute you. We turn our attention now to our top 10 worldwide and domestic for 2023. We start, as always, with the worldwide chart. And in first place, still with no signs of being dethroned, is Super Mario Bros. Movie with $1.3 billion. In second place, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with $842 million. Fast X with $723 million. Full River Red with $673 million. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse with $663 million. The Wandering Earth 2 with $604 million. The Little Mermaid with $547 million. Lost in the Stars with $487 million. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania dropping down to the 9th spot now with $476 million, and rounding out the top 10 is John Wick Chapter 4 with $432 million. Over on the domestic front, Super Mario Bros. Remains number one as well with $573 million. In second place, way behind, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse with $368 million. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 rounds up the third spot with $358 million. The Little Mermaid with $293 million. Ant-Man and the Wasp with $214 million. John Wick Chapter 4 with $187 million. Creed 3 with $156 million. Transformers Rise of the Beast with $152 million. Fast X with $145 million. And right behind it, just a few $1,000s off from Fast X, is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, also at $145 million. Probably will have passed Fast X at the time of this video's release. Now, there's nothing to report over on our top 10 bets or our blockbuster status or any charts like that. Is the same as last week. We're still waiting for Mission Impossible. Probably by the time of us making this video, we'll finally be passing the $100 million mark. So for next week, we'll finally have all that good stuff to dive into with that. For now, all we have left to really discuss this week, it has been a nice, slow, even though there's a lot to talk about in all of the sweet, awesome stuff that Mission Impossible and Sound of Freedom and all that stuff did, it was a light week in being able to talk about all of these great charts that we always have to look at. Still holdovers from last week, but next week I'm sure there will be just complete changes and additions to all of those as we go along. For now, all we have left to talk about is my favorite chart, and that is the 2023 top 10 chart riders. And that is where we take a look at who has had the best legs so far this year. We chart along with every movie as it comes out to see how long it spends in the top 10. So at the end of the year, we can take a look and we can see which movies had the best longevity here at the box office in 2023 and what movies captivated the audiences most of all. We take a look now at the chart. And as you can see, still in number one spot, in no way close to being dethroned, Avatar: The Way of Water, 12 weeks locked in at number one. Puss in Boots right behind it at 11 weeks locked in. The Super Mario Brothers, the first movie of 2023 to hit double digits with 10 weeks locked in. Right behind that, you got John Wick Chapter 4 and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, both locked in at 9 weeks. The Little Mermaid right now sitting at 8 weeks. It hopes to hang around for one more week in the top 10 so that it can join the 9-week boys, but I think it's virtually impossible for it right now to hit double digits. Right behind that, you got A Man Called Otto and Dungeons and Dragons locked in at 8 weeks. So the question is now, will Little Mermaid get to 9 weeks, or will it lock in at 8 weeks with these other two movies? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse sits at 7 weeks right now. It is the only other movie that has a chance right now of getting to double digits. All eyes will have to wait and see. Ant-Man and the Wasp right there locked in at 7 weeks. Transformers Rise of the Beast is sitting at 6 weeks right now, hoping to add a 7th week so that it doesn't join the median average of movies all locked in at 6 weeks, with Scream 6, Creed 3, Jesus Revolution, Megan, Missing, Air, and Evil Dead Rise. Now that'll do it for all of us here at the charts this week. It was another stellar weekend. Mission Impossible finally came out. I've been waiting for this movie for so long. It did not disappoint. All eyes now turn to the absolute box office juggernaut behemoth of a weekend that is going to be next weekend. There are so many questions that need answered, so much stuff that's going to go on. Who is going to be the number one movie of the weekend next week? Is it going to be Barbie? Is it going to be Oppenheimer? Will Mission Impossible pull a fucking surprise out of there and get a second week? Doubtful. Obviously, I don't think that one's going to happen, but it's a funny thing to question and put out there because as you can see, since Guardians of the Galaxy, we have not had a movie stay number one #1 in the box office for more than 1 week. Every week since Guardians of the Galaxy, since the summer has kicked off, a new movie has been #1 every week. I don't think that's going to change this weekend. I honestly think Barbie is going to end up being the #1 movie for the weekend, with Oppenheimer just behind it, and then Mission Impossible rounding out the top 3, with Sound of Freedom coming in 4th, and then I think Elemental, honestly, is going to hang around and stay in that top 5 spot, and I think that's going to be our top 5 movies for the weekend. Now, obviously, anything could fucking happen. Sound of Freedom continues to expand and continues to do phenomenal business, so who knows how high it can climb or where it can sit. Can it outperform Mission Impossible next weekend? Who knows? But these are interesting questions to take a look at and for us to follow along and see. But I think that's a fairly solid lineup for right now for where I think it's going to hold out to. I think, Barbie #1 is going to do an absolute phenomenal opening weekend. Oppenheimer will be just behind it because everyone's doing a 2 for this weekend. Mission Impossible, I think, is going to have an excellent holdover right there, and I think it's going to be just up there with a lot of those. I think Sound of Freedom probably also still going to have an excellent haul right there. So I think you're going to look at a weekend where we're going to have 4 movies that are probably going to bring in a really nice chunk of change for themselves. I think this weekend is going to be the busiest weekend of the summer. While at my job, they were claiming that it was going to be the Flash Elemental weekend. That obviously did not turn out to be the case. All of us were so surprised when they said that too, because everyone in my theater was just like, no, it's definitely going to be Barbie and Oppenheimer. Like, the movies, that whole double feature has been memed to death. It's going to be crazy. This is going to be this year's Minions from last year. Now, hopefully everybody's not as big of a pain in the ass as they were for Minions. Hopefully everybody just comes, has fun, and enjoys this movie, and we don't get any fucking shenanigans or any assholes, because I don't want to deal with assholes. It's just maddening having to deal with fucking annoying ass kids and all those people at this theater. So hopefully everybody is chill. Hopefully everyone just goes out, has some fun, kicks back, enjoys the land of Barbie and the world of Oppenheimer and any other movie you're going to go out and see this weekend. As long as you get out and go see a movie, that is the most important part. But that'll do it for all of us here at the Outpost in this adventure. Until the next one, you have been you, I have been me. These are the movies that we love so much. And as always, I'll see you at the movies.